All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about one of the biggest secrets to building AI that actually works, and works well. It's not about complicated code. It's about the ingredients. We're going to find out exactly how the best AI is baked. You've seen this, right? I mean, how can one AI completely fail to tell a cat from a dog, while another one can spot disease on a medical scan better than a human can? The secret isn't just a smarter algorithm. It's all about what that AI learned from in the first place.
It's maybe the oldest and truest rule in all of computer science. An AI is basically a student. And if you give that student a textbook full of mistakes and nonsense, you're going to get a very confused student. It's simple. An AI can only be as good as the data you train it on.
For the longest time, the big race in AI was all about who could collect the most data, just mountains of it. But the really smart folks are realizing that's not the game anymore. The key isn't quantity, it's all about quality. In fact, it's about creating a data set so pure, it's basically a perfect blueprint for intelligence.
And that brings us to the main event, the golden seed dataset. Seriously, think of it like the perfect starter dough for a master chef, Or that one flawless seed that you know will grow into a strong, healthy tree. It's small, it's pristine, and it is unbelievably powerful. So how do we get our hands on this perfect seed? Well, that's what we're breaking down today. We're going to start with AI's dirty data problem, then walk through the four-step refining recipe. We'll see how less data can actually mean more power, find out how it's all put to use, and finally, really understand why this foundation is so incredibly important.
Okay, first things first, let's really get a handle on the problem we're trying to solve. Every AI project starts with this giant pile of raw material, and, well, to put it nicely, it's a mess.
Think of this raw data like a huge sack of flour you just got from the mill. Yeah, there's a ton of it, but it's also got rocks and dust and who knows what else mixed in. If you try to bake a cake with that, someone's going to break a tooth. In the AI world, those rocks are things like mislabeled pictures, blurry images, or just flat-out wrong information. So the big question is, how do you get all that junk out of the flour? How do you turn it into a perfect golden dough? Turns out there's a pretty meticulous recipe for that. Let's walk through it. So we're going on a little journey here, from our raw, messy flour to a perfect final product. It starts with a big sifting, then we do some test baking, and we finish with an expert taste test. And with each step, the quality goes way up and the quantity goes way down. The first step is just a huge automated cleanup. You take all that raw data and you push it through a bunch of different sorting algorithms. The best way to think about it is like using several different sieves, all with slightly different sized holes. The only bits of data that get to move on are the ones that every single sieve agrees on. This is how you get rid of the really obvious junk right away. And the effect of this first pass is, well, it's huge. Just look at this. We could start with something like 100,000 raw images, and after this first sifting, we're already down to just 30,000. Yeah, we just tossed out 70% of our data, but what's left is so much cleaner. Okay, this next step is really cool. We actually use AI to help clean the data for another AI. We take that sifted data and we show it to a few different AI models. We're basically asking them, hey, what do you make of this? Is this a clear picture to you? The only data we keep is the stuff that all of the models can identify easily and with high confidence. And just like that, our dataset gets even smaller. We might go from 30,000 down to 15,000. But now, what we've got is a collection of data that we know is AI-friendly. It's been pre-approved by other AIs, which means we've gotten rid of a lot of the weird, ambiguous stuff that could trip up a model while it's learning. And that brings us to the final, and I mean the absolute most important quality check. We take our AI-approved data and we put it in front of actual human experts. The only data that makes the final cut is the data where the human expert and all the AI models are in 100% agreement. No exceptions. This is the ultimate seal of approval, mixing machine speed with human wisdom. So after all that sifting and testing, look what we're left with. From that original pile of 100,000 data points, we might only have 5,000 left. That is just 5% of what we started with. But those 5,000 points, they are as close to perfect as you can get. That's our golden seed dataset. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This feels totally backwards, right? How can throwing away 95% of your data possibly make your AI stronger? Well, it all comes down to that classic trade-off, quality versus quantity. This table just lays it out perfectly.
As you move from the raw stage down to the golden stage, look at what happens. The quantity just plummets, but the quality skyrockets. What we're doing is trading a giant, messy pile of data for a small, absolutely perfect gem. And that gem is way more valuable.
Okay, so we've done all this hard work. We have our tiny, perfect golden seed dataset, plus those other slightly less pure layers we made. So how do we actually use this stuff to teach an AI? It's not as simple as just dumping it all in at once.
The strategy is brilliant, actually. You start with perfection. First, you train the AI only on the golden seed data. This makes sure it learns the absolute most important patterns flawlessly, without any noise or confusion. Then, you carefully start adding in the next layer of data, that core of core set, and then maybe the core set, all while keeping a close eye on performance to make sure it stays solid.
Look, this whole process is a ton of work. There's no doubt about it. But in the real world, the stakes couldn't be higher. The gap between an AI trained on clean data and one trained on messy data can be the difference between a breakthrough and a total disaster.
Just think about it for a second. For a self-driving car, mistaking a plastic bag for a pedestrian isn't an option. For a medical AI, missing the early signs of a tumor could be a tragedy. In fields like these, you simply can't afford to have your AI learning from garbage data. You have to start with a foundation of truth. And that's really the bottom line. When an AI's decision could literally impact someone's life, building its entire understanding on a foundation of perfect, verified, golden data, well, it isn't just a good idea, it's the only responsible way to do it.
At the end of the day, it's all about this right here. When you start with a perfect seed, you guarantee that the AI learns the right lessons from the very beginning. That creates a super stable foundation, which means you can then grow the model and teach it more things without it ever forgetting those core, correct patterns.
So that kind of leaves us with a pretty big thought, doesn't it? As AI gets woven into every part of our lives, maybe the most important job isn't building the biggest models, but being one of these meticulous data chefs, carefully crafting these golden recipes to make sure our AI learns from the absolute best humanity has to offer. Thanks for joining me for this breakdown.